More on the recovery operation and the search for answers. Let's go to Mitch Garber in Atlanta. He has over 20 years of experience in the investigation of transportation accidents. Mitch, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Asieh.
So how key is the discovery of debris, the bodies, the entire field in determining what went so horribly wrong?
Well, there's two factors here. One is that they're actually finding both portions of the aircraft and, of course, the individuals who were on board. But again, it gives them a real good, solid lead on where to start looking for the aircraft itself, and most importantly, the flight data and cockpit voice recorders. So those particular recorders, once they get that information, of course, they'll be able to look very specifically at what may have been going on in the moments leading up to the aircraft's loss.
And the flight data recorders and the voice recorder, they have a battery life, so time is of the essence, isn't it?
Of course it is. Again, given that they've found the debris field, or at least a portion of the debris field at this point in time, the expectation would normally be that they will be able to zero in on the actual locations of the black boxes, the voice and data recorders, fairly shortly.
So the debris that was found about 10 kilometers from where the plane last lost contact. What does that tell us? And do you think the search moving forward will focus in that area?
Well, it's difficult to say. Again, there's going to be a lot of coordination between the authorities there on the scene. The types of information that they're getting on weather, on currents, on conditions at the surface that may account for the locations of the materials that they're finding. That, in addition to the radar information that they've received, is going to help them sort of focus in on where the locations are specifically that they need to be looking for the remainder of the aircraft and for those black boxes.
Mitch, you mentioned weather, and severe thunderstorms were clearly a factor in this disaster, but can severe thunderstorms alone bring down a plane?
Well, again, it's not just a matter of what the weather is, it's also a matter of what the aircraft was doing, of what the pilots were doing in response to any weather information that they may have had, and what weather information was actually available to them at the time. There's going to be a lot of information that's going to have to be sorted through and reviewed in order to make some sort of determination as to what may have affected or may have caused this sort of a crash.
I know we're, again, speculating here, but are you surprised that no Mayday was declared on the plane by the pilots?
Well, again, some of it's going to come down to what actually happened here, and right now we're very early in that phase. There may have been a situation in which there was a sudden catastrophe that incapacitated the pilots and made them unable to respond to any communications. In addition, if they were responding to an emergency, they may simply have been too busy trying to recover the aircraft to actually communicate with folks on the ground.
Mitch, this is not the first time we've seen something like this, sadly. We saw it with MH370 as well. Do you think there should be new rules to track airplanes in case we see disasters like this?
Well, and of course, that's a big question that's going on and really has started even before that time with the Air France incident a few years ago, where there's just this question as to how are you going to be able to tell where an aircraft may have gone down or been lost in order to help with the search. I think it's a measure of how good we actually are at finding those aircraft, that even when the information is somewhat limited, we still seem to manage most of the time. Malaysia Air, being the fairly glaring exception, still managed to find the aircraft. So I think there's a lot of discussion to go on as to how and what information should be gathered real time in flight for all these aircraft. But that discussion is ongoing now, and there's a lot of authorities very interested in how that's going to move forward.
So Mitch, when they locate the wreckage of this plane, most of the wreckage, what will happen next? How will they lift it up? Will they lift all of it, portion of it? Will they try to assemble the whole plane together once it's out?
Well, and those are decisions that are made investigation by investigation. Some investigations actually require that. They require that all of the pieces be obtained, that all of that information be brought up from the seafloor. Obviously, there's going to be interest in recovering the bodies of those individuals who have perished in this incident, so there's going to be a lot of discussion as we move forward. I think probably one of the priorities will be trying to get those bodies back to their loved ones. And I think one of the other big priorities is going to be getting those cockpit and flight data recorders After that, I think it's going to depend on what information is still necessary and how much of that wreckage needs to be recovered in order to answer the important questions.
Still so much work and so many questions. Mitch Garber, sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.